Waycross presents an election forum for Issue 18, Proposed Tax Levy for the Village of Greenhills. When voters go to the polls on November 2nd, they will be asked to consider the following issue. A renewal of a tax for the benefit of the Village of Greenhills for the purpose of current operating expenses at a rate not exceeding 3 28/100 mils for each $1 valuation, which amounts to 32 8/10 cents for each $100 of valuation for 5 years, commencing in 2021, first due in calendar year 2022.
Welcome to the Waycross Election Forum. This forum is for the Village of Greenhills General Operating Expense Renewal Levy. And I'm Dana Gagnon, Waycross Programming Coordinator at Community Media. And we have with us in the studio Village of Greenhills Council Member Jack Lee, and we have the Village of Greenhills Finance Director Deborah Heimer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And what we're going to do is we will go through a whole series of questions to make sure that we answer anything that you might be wondering about this renewal levy so that you'll be ready to cast your vote when you go to the polls on November 2nd. But before we start those questions, let me just cover this. If you are watching this program live on October 6th, you can be part of the program because you can email me your questions about the Greenhills levy, and I will get them right here in the studio on my magical device, and I will ask your questions about the Greenhills renewal levy. So here's what you're going to do. If it's October 6th, you can email me at live@waycross.org. Now there's a couple of rules for questions. You must be a Greenhills resident to ask a question. So when you send me your email, please include your name and your Greenhills street. Now all I'm going to say on the air is a first name. I'm not going to give your last name. I'm not going to say where you live. But that's how we can make sure that the questions about the Greenhills levy are really coming from Greenhills. So let's get started and talk about this renewal levy. Let me start with just why is Greenhills asking for this levy?
Would you like me?
Yeah. Each 5 years, it's necessary to renew an existing levy based upon the needs of the village. And in this particular case, this is general fund levy just for the operations of the village. You're looking at current operating expenditures that as far as just turning on the lights. And it's not just the lights at the municipal building, it's the lights throughout the village. The service department and the functions of our staff within the building.
That's important because I think sometimes when we get a levy question, we don't always know what it's for, and this is just the things that people expect to be happening in Greenhills, that the street lights go on, that the public services happen. Deborah, when was the last time Greenhills asked for a levy?
The last time we asked for a levy, not this levy, but just a levy, was the recreation levy, and that was a renewal as well, and that was last year, and that was a 5-year renewal as well.
And that actually leads me to my next question. It's a renewal. So my next question is, will this levy increase taxes? Do you want to address that?
Yes, I will. No, it is a renewal. The Village of Greenhills first passed the general operating levy back in 1971, and it's been wonderful that the renewals have been passed for that long duration. The renewals do not affect the taxes.
So it's the same one that we have seen?
Same exact one.
And how long does this levy last?
It will last another 5 years. So it will begin this year. with the funds first due in 2022. So from passage this year for 5 years.
Jack, you started a list of specifically what kinds of things this levy pays for, because every levy has to pay for its very specific things. What are some of the things that this levy funds?
Well, if you look at the basic operations of the village, just like any business operation, is that you have staff costs, you have material costs, you have energy needs, so that if you were running a business, this would be the normal income that you would expect coming into the door.
Can I ask, and Deborah, you may have the notes on this, how much specifically does this ask for? What does this do for the budget of Greenhills?
Oh, okay. Yes, we will be receiving approximately $64,000 a year for 5 years for the renewal. And the Hamilton County Auditor's Office uses formulas to determine that amount for the village. And the total estimated property tax valuation is a little over $61 million. And that is a critical factor to determine exactly what the village would receive.
I think more to the point, to the voters' standpoint is how much does this cost me?
Sure.
And for a $100,000 valuation, it comes out to $26.92 a year. I'm sure for some people that's a grand sum, but it's the same amount that they paid last year, the same amount that they paid 10 years ago, so that has not really changed.
So I'm going to take just a brief moment in between our questions. I want to take a minute to remind viewers that if you're watching this while we're live on October 6th, you can email any of the questions that you might have about this levy for Greenhills. You would email that to live@waycross.org, and that address will be working on October 6th. I will get it right here in the studio, and I will be able to ask your question. So now that we've covered, we've covered a lot of the things that, how much is this is. That my next question was, how much is that for a homeowner? And you just covered that. Can we just say more generally, why should residents support this levy? Deborah, why would you, how would you answer that?
I'll be glad to talk about that. Well, the renewal term is up, and we do need the renewal to continue to pay for the operating expenses for the village, and also for the betterment of the community. In addition to the general operating expenses for administrative services and so forth, it also would cover, as Jack mentioned, the utilities and the street lighting. It covers our Rumpke services and fees that we are charged from them. It does take care of the village grass cutting, some municipal court services, any repairs and maintenance of the village equipment so that we can maintain our upkeep for the village. It does take care of our new park, which we are in the process of that's up and underway, even though COVID disrupted some of that. But it will help to put in some new pathways and some equipment to do that. So we'll finally be able to get our new park up and running.
So residents will see directly what this money goes for. But it sounds like a lot of it is places that you kind of take for granted. You take for granted that the lights are on in the neighborhoods so that it's safe. You take for granted that the village green has been mowed before fun things like the Harvest Fest last weekend. You take for granted that you can fund your municipal court that's happening, that has to happen. All of these are basic things that have to happen to run the village, and it's stuff that this has been covering since 1971, you said.
50 years, yeah.
50 years, yep. So every 5 years, though, it has to be renewed.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. So, and I think that's important to know, that no one is picking something that's a permanent fee, because it gets reevaluated every 5 years. But it's not a raise, it's the same one, it just gets reevaluated. So that's good to know. One thing I ask when it comes to any levy, even though it's not a fun question, is if the levy does not pass, what will we see? And who wants to take that?
Well, that'll make Deb's job incredibly more difficult. Over the past year, staff has been terrific about holding down expenses. They've taken sizable percentage cuts in budgets to maintain during a period of time where we had no idea what was going to show up in our income tax, which is a large part of our situation. We didn't know how many residents were going to be out of a job, for how long, and so forth. So they've done a terrific job of holding down those expenses. If the renewal is not renewed, that just makes that job even more painful. Correct?
An accurate
You
summation?
couldn't have said it any better. Yes. I mean, general and administrative services would be in jeopardy. It's very crucial, and we're very grateful that we have received those funds for 50 years. It's been very helpful.
And when you plan a village budget, to have to, this is your village budget. This is trash and lights and grass and all of that. But you have to, it says a lot that it has been renewed. And then, of course, again, this is a renewal. It's not a new thing. It's the same one that you've had since 1971.
There's a certain quality of life that the residents of Greenhills, enjoy. And as a council member, we feel honor bound to make sure that's at least maintained, if not enhanced. So taking a step backward would hurt.
So the fun question then is the counterpart. If the levy passes, what will residents see? Will they see anything new? Will they see a lot of what they liked already that was happening? What would they expect to see?
They would see both. I mean, they would see there would not be a disruption of services. They can still count on their trash being picked up, and that the village would be maintained and services completed for the citizens. When they need us, we're there for them, and we can help them. As Jack said, we want to continue with that wonderful quality of life that exists in Greenhills. We also would like to, improve on that with the new park. We think that's a very important aspect that all of the citizens and their families could use.
I think last year when the recreation levy renewed, they showed a map, and maybe that's been a topic of conversation with some of the other village administrators in the recent past. But I really think the park will be something that the citizens of Greenhills will really enjoy once we get it going.
That'll be something to look forward to. we're getting towards the end. But before we finish, I've been going down a list of questions, but I'd love for each of you to just take a second and wrap up what you would like the residents of Greenhills to know about this levy. And we'll start with you, Jack.
Well, thank you. This past year has been a challenge for a lot of us, and if you had a major change in your income in the past year, you know what a struggle that can be, and what this levy renewal represents is a maintaining of current income to current expenses, and we just feel that it's vitally important that the renewal be upheld.
How about you, Deborah?
Well, I can't really add much to that. It's just it is a very important piece to our operations, and we ask that you vote yes for our levy.
Before we leave, if someone has questions, something that we didn't cover, we covered, I think, all the basics. What you want to know about this Greenhills renewal. But if someone has another question and they would like to look for more information, where can they find that?
There's information on the village website,
Excellent.
which is greenhillsohio.org, and you can get on that site and review that. I believe the documentation is there. You can read the ballot issue on the Board of Elections site. If you didn't see it scroll through at the beginning of the program, there's additional information, as well as asking us out on the street, or calling into the office.
Correct. And the citizens could call 513-825-2100.
Excellent. And that will get you the village office, and they can find you or someone else who knows the answer to those questions. So
Yes.
I appreciate that. Sometimes folks, we go through it really quickly and they just want to go look at it again or ask another question. And you're right. We had the whole text of the issue on your ballot at the beginning of this program too, so you can go back and watch that there. I want to thank you so much for coming in, just so that we had a chance to learn a little bit about what this is, the general operating expense renewal levy, and it had specific things that it covers and why it's important. I appreciate that so much. And I want to thank the viewers as well, because by watching this, that means you want to be an informed voter on November 2nd. If you need more information before you vote in the upcoming election, you can watch all of our election forum programs online at www.waycross.tv. You can also go to the Hamilton County Board of Elections website to make sure that you are registered, to look at a sample ballot, and to find out where your voting location is. That is votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. Now, registration to vote for this election ended October 4th, but early voting has already begun, so you can find more information about that also at the Hamilton County Board of Elections site. Just one more reminder to make sure you vote on November 2nd. I'm Dana Gagnon, Waycross Government Programming Coordinator, and I will see you at the polls on November 2nd.